production of Broad and High is funded in part by the Greater Columbus Arts Council, supporting arts, advancing culture, and connecting the community to artists, events, and classes at columbusmakesart.com.
This time on Broad and High, we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of the release of Rocky with an episode dedicated to the art of boxing. This and more right now on Broad and High. Welcome to Broad and High. I'm your host, Kate Quickle, and today we're inside the Strongwater event space in Franklinton. It's hard to believe it's been 40 years since the release of Rocky, the Academy Award-winning film about the underdog boxer named Rocky Balboa. So in honor of the film's 40th anniversary, we're going to pay a little tribute to the art of boxing. First up, we follow two local artists to learn what they enjoy most about illustrating the athletic form.
I stayed at the boxing match, maybe went through about 3 fights, then ended up taking pictures of about 700 images. Then I went through the editing process and I brought it down to 30. That's pretty usable, can be turned into painting. Well, this one has a kind of interesting viewpoint, semi bird's eye view looking down from above, from a balcony, and also capture the people in the background, so it also communicates the environment. So that was what I like about this shot. So one difficult thing about working based on the photograph is we kind of have to remember how it looked, because photography loses so much texture and information and details. But at the same time, that is where I can actually use imagination. So I can be a little more free about what kind of color I can bring in. Then kind of push the color a little bit.
The hardest part to me is capture that moment. Yeah, that moment. First, you gotta understand and learn some like a body structure, head, like the ribs, the bone, then some muscles.
Figure drawing is, to my view, it is more complicated because of that, underlying structure of the human body is more complex than the fruits or flowers. What is common between figure painting, figure drawing, and still life painting, still life drawing is translating how the light hits the surface, and how the light makes the object or human body make more three-dimensional and more convincing and believable. So after all, when it comes to the bottom line is they are pretty much the same thing, but human body, of course, involves more movement. So that gets a little bit trickier.
In 1975, a year before the release of Rocky, the fight that likely inspired the film was happening in Cleveland at the old Richfield Coliseum. Muhammad Ali spent 15 rounds fighting to retain his world heavyweight title against underdog Chuck Wepner. So it's perhaps fitting that we venture up north for this next segment. In the 1970s, Joe Frazier, George Foreman, and Sugar Ray Leonard were household names. But earlier in the century, the sport was considered a bit of a brawler's game, frowned upon in polite society and even outlawed in many places. So matches were often held in private athletic clubs like Sharkey's in New York City, which is the setting of perhaps the best-known painting by Columbus native George Bellows. It's in the permanent collection of the Cleveland Museum of Art, so we went up to have a look.
We are here at the Cleveland Museum of Art. The show highlights our great masterpiece by George Bellows, his gutsy boxing subject called Stagget Sharkies that was painted in 1909. Bellows was a very versatile artist, and he did all kinds of painting. He did landscapes, he did seascapes, he did portraits, he did genre scenes, which are paintings of everyday life. And one of the subset of his genre scenes are his sporting subjects. At the time Bellows painted Stagget Sharkies in New York in 1909, public boxing was illegal. The painting takes place at a location called Sharkey's Athletic Club, which was actually a back room of a bar, and Bellows' studio was directly across the street. The painting is oil on canvas, and there's a wonderful application of paint in the work. When you get up close to it, you see that Bellows is working wet paint within wet paint. It's a very creamy application of paint, and this really, I think, underscores the movement in the painting, because the painting itself seems to be moving. And I think that there's a wonderful sense of you are there immediacy to the canvas when Bellows puts us, the spectator, in the painting by having the horizon line be the ring itself. And so we are among the crowd of people looking up into the composition. And if you look at the individual people in the composition, they're really personality types. They're not portraits. They're characters that Bellows probably knew quite well because he went there so often. Scholars have studied the painting carefully, and it's interesting that Bellows looked at works of ancient Greek and Roman statuary and also paintings by Michelangelo when it came time for him to create the work. We see that he carefully composed it using a triangle. For example, the base of the triangle is the ring, the floor of the ring itself. One leg of the triangle goes through the leg of the boxer on the left, and the other leg of the triangle goes through the extended arm of the referee on the right. And this is a time-honored way for artists to compose works of art, to create a pleasing and stable composition. And the fact that Bellows is able to wed this traditional way, almost academic way of composing a work of art was something that comes across so alive and so refreshing, I think, is part of his genius. Interestingly, Bellows only painted 6 boxing oils during his career, but he's known as one of the greatest artists of the sport. And that's due to the fact that he also made lithographs, and these are prints that were then widely disseminated.
And lithography had sort of been tainted by becoming very popular in the commercialized world. So posters were being made, ads were being made in the lithographic medium. And so the artists had abandoned it. Bellows is the artist that commits himself to kind of bringing lithography back to the art world, and he does. And in the course of about 9 years, from 1916 to about 1924, he creates 170 different lithographic images. He did all of his boxing images in lithographs as well as painting. And so these early boxing scenes, of which Stagget Sharkies is one, and we have the Stagget Sharkies, the print, the lithograph here. These early ones, they were called slumming subjects. For Bellows, it was part of that energy and drive that was the city of New York. I mean, Bellows was interested in the complexities and the contradictions of modern life. And so this sport that is also this kind of underbelly of the city interested him. He was trying to capture modern New York for him. What did American life consist? This was American life for George Bellows.
Here in Columbus, we're all probably familiar with the Arnold Classic. It's that epic bodybuilding competition and fitness extravaganza that lures athletes from all over the world to compete in dozens of different sporting events. And it is the place to find some of the finest figures and physiques in the world on display. It's also where each year a group of artists participates in a non-sporting event that takes advantage of all these sculpted athletes.
Where does inspiration come from with this type of thing? It takes a very special artist to participate at Art at the Arnold. Friday afternoon, the artists go out into the event and they select a subject matter of anything of their choosing of interest that they would like to do a painting of for our all-day Saturday session.
I love painting people or anything from life. I was on a quest to find the perfect photograph to do a painting from. I don't usually paint athletes, so.
Oh, this one's good. Want to see? This one's good.
The Arnold Sports Festival adds new events every single year and just keeps growing larger and larger and larger. We were trying to think of a way where we could actually combine fine art with the weekend, the sports weekend. So we said, well, let's give it a try, and now this is our 6th annual Art at the Arnold. The artists that are here today are some of the very best artists for figurative and they're sports enthusiasts.
What I want this one to evoke is the struggle between the two individuals wrestling.
The artist can work in any medium that they're comfortable with.
That's what's great, the diversity of the whole thing that makes it so interesting, just like the event itself. All types of artists from all over the place doing very conservative work to wild and crazy. We've got sculpture this time, someone works in tape.
I started doing duct tape a couple years ago. I work for an ad agency. I'm an art director by trade, so I do have a heavy interest in graphic design, so that's kind of where I shifted away from painting and more into more of a graphic interpretation of the human form. This is something I literally only do once a year. I only do it for this event. It's a lot of work, and it's hard on the back too. There is actually underneath this tape is a sheet of plexiglass. So I'm working right on a hard surface. So I'm cutting through layers of duct tape, peeling away areas to reveal other colors underneath. Well, this type of medium is, you have to really plan. So I knew before I even came to the event that I was going to do a gymnast. I wanted to figure out, what the pose was going to be and all that. And you never know what you're going to get. You go in there, you bring your camera, and you're taking shots, and most of them are blurry because these athletes keep on moving. But I managed to get a couple of interesting shots, poses that I liked that were, where they were still enough to capture. And then I just, busted out the duct tape colors that are, there's so many colors nowadays that you can get. And their outfits are also very colorful, so it really lends itself to this medium.
It's all sports oriented. Everything we do, it builds off of the beauty of the athletic form. The Arnold Sports Festival has 174,000 attendees in 3 days, 18,000 athletes that participate, and we have 50 artists. So we have the honors of being the smallest event for the whole weekend.
I was a spectator here on their first year that they started the Art at the Arnold, and I've been an artist all my life, so I applied, and this is my 5th year. I took a picture of this figure bodybuilder, and he's my influence for my work today. I caught him getting tanned up for his bodybuilding competition, and I captured a shot while he was preparing. I'm a high school art teacher, and I've done art all my life, and I love drawing the figure and working in every medium, so I just continue to strive to challenge myself in the mediums every day.
It's amazing a different level of culture that artists have added to the Sports Festival weekend. And it's been well accepted. People love seeing something created from nothing.
We love the challenge of getting the photographs, making something, and then even if you have a bad photograph, trying to get something good out of it and be creative with it.
It's a great way to combine the arts, and that's the best subject matter to paint or draw is the figure, so what better way to combine the two elements?
Among the many memorable scenes in Rocky was the one where the boxer trains for his big fight against Apollo Creed using a slab of meat as a punching bag. So meat is the theme of our next segment. Our friends at Harvest Public Media explore the future of meat production for those who make meat and those who eat it. Yak burger, anyone?
Okay, so first time in the grub steak? Yep. It is. All right, so the spiel. We have yak, beef, buffalo, elk.
At Grub Steak in Estes Park, Colorado, tourists drop in daily to try out new options, and their favorite meal is yak.
If you've never had yak before, I highly recommend it. Okay. It's a really clean flavor, lean meat. It tastes more like beef than anything.
It looks and cooks like beef too.
Every year it's grown more and more. More than a third of all the burgers we sell are yak. We'll go in the kitchen and cut them cut.
The cowboy yak. Thank you.
Yak and beef may look the same on the dinner plate, but not on the ranch. Ryan Holland runs 7H Yak Ranch in Calhan, Colorado. He's raising 12 yak and says they're good for the environment. Yak are smaller than cattle, so they need less food and less water, and they produce less waste.
These animals are healthy, these animals are good. There's so many benefits to having these animals, it just only makes sense. It only makes sense.
And yak are considered a leaner meat, or a more healthy option than beef products. Holland says the cattle industry should look at incorporating more yak, and maybe someday, yak will be a mega industry too.
I think with information out there, with training and education, I think it could easily be the very same thing. We have it for cattle, so why couldn't we have it for this?
For starters, there aren't very many yak. According to the International Yak Association, there are only 2,100 registered yak in the United States. Compare that to the 2.1 million cattle slaughtered in just 1 month in the United States. Those are not the kind of numbers of yak that will feed the world.
The estimate is that we'll need to produce 100% more food by 2050.
Keith Belk says that if America is going to feed the world, it's going to be with the big three: pork, beef, and chicken. These are established industries made for mass consumption. So where do we find that increase we need by 2050?
And 70% of that will have to be based on additional technology.
That's what researchers are working on at CSU. At the university's research ranch, Jesse French is a livestock manager, and he's breeding cattle that need less feed.
Feed efficiency is really looking at the input side of things. So they might be able to grow to the exact same weight, but one did it with 20% less feed.
In the university's test kitchen,
so this isn't retail ready as it is.
Undergrads work with professors to reduce waste at the butcher floor.
So we cut that and essentially have two halves.
And over in the laboratory, CSU meat safety students are infecting meat with salmonella and then testing new methods to kill off the disease. It's an important aspect of the meat supply. In the last decade, U.S. producers had to destroy about 40 million pounds of recalled meat every year. All of these efficiencies in feeding, butchering, and reducing food waste aim to reach one goal.
How do we feed more people at a lower cost and have a smaller impact on the environment all at the same time?
It's that environmental impact that has some people thinking about eating less meat, or even eliminating meat from their diet altogether. Some food developers are trying to give those people an option. The challenge? To make a meatless alternative for those who like the taste of the real thing. Devin Bruns is the lead researcher in charge of developing Harmony Valley brand meat substitutes.
We worked with a lot of different ingredients, a lot of different soy products, different ingredients that would add bite to it when you cooked it up to kind of really give you that feel of a cooked beef.
Bruns hopes his products can influence the market, but he won't be able to rely on vegetarians. Just 5% of Americans identified as vegetarian in a 2012 Gallup survey, and that number had hardly changed since the late 90s. Bruns hopes to attract carnivores to his product, not to convert them to vegetarians, but to give them an alternative.
I think there is a huge trend of people just trying to eat healthier, so be it maybe they're not going to switch over 100%, maybe 20% of the time, people who now eat all meat are going to start eating different vegetarian products.
So what's the future? Probably more alternatives like soy or yak. But when it comes to feeding the world, researchers say the U.S. will be serving up beef, pork, and poultry.
If we're going to improve efficiency, increase production of food that not only will address North American needs, but it'll also address global needs, a big chunk of it's going to have to come from the Midwest of the United States.
Ranchers, researchers, and food producers are finding ways to meet that global need. And the real transformation might not happen in the United States, but maybe in those developing nations, as today's American plate goes global.
Tastes like a hamburger.
So we're going to break from our Rocky theme and take a moment to celebrate Cincinnati-based artist Charlie Harper. Back in 2006, the mayor of Cincinnati declared December 8th Charlie Harper Day. It was to honor the Ohio artist who's best known for his modern and playful wildlife illustrations that are still quite popular today. So we stopped by the Ohio History Center to peek at one of his illustrations in this latest installment of Artifacts. Well, I'm here today at the Ohio History Connection with Becky Odom, a curator here, and we're going to learn a little bit about Cincinnati-based artist Charlie Harper. So, we've got a painting right here. Now, tell me, this is a painting? It's a lithograph? What?
So it's actually a lithograph, which is a type of print.
All right.
So it's based on an original painting, but what a lithograph is a print made from a plate that is drawn on by the artist.
Oh.
So Harper would draw with a grease crayon on a metal plate and then apply oil-based ink, which would adhere to the grease crayon, but not to the other parts of the plate. And he was a very skilled lithographer, so he could actually print multiple colors at the same time.
Wow, so is this typical of his style, this kind of abstract nature?
It is. So he called this minimal realism. His goal was to capture the essence of his subject in as few brushstrokes as possible.
Oh, I kind of like that. So how do you think he developed his style?
So his style came from several different places. So he was born on a farm in Frenchton, West Virginia, and so grew up sketching the areas on the farm. So lots of wildlife and animals and farmland, things like that. And so that influenced his love of nature. And then his style was influenced actually by his World War II service.
Oh, really?
He was drafted, and the Army trained him as in map making and drafting, and sent him over in 1944 to France, and he was an advanced scout with a reconnaissance unit. The story goes that there was a kind chaplain attached to his unit who carried his art supplies with him because he wasn't able to carry them with himself.
Right.
And so he would sketch the scenes that he saw in France, and also he would do portraits of his fellow soldiers for them to send home to their mothers and wives. So he credits his World War II service with forcing him to really figure out what the essence of a scene was that he was trying to capture, because he had to work very, very quickly to capture it before he had to move on and continue his Army service.
Of course, that makes sense. So was most of his work this type of print, or did he also worked in advertising, that kind of thing?
He did. So he got his start as a commercial artist. That's how he made a paycheck. So this particular piece he actually did on commission for this book, Ohio's Natural Heritage, which was published in 1979 by the Ohio Academy of Art, which is based right here in Columbus. And so you could see that you have the wood duck on the front cover, and the baby beaver on the back cover. And when you look really closely at it, you realize that it's actually two views of the same scene. Here we're underwater looking at the baby beaver who's swimming underneath the duck. You can see his head and his feet here. And underneath the duck, you can see just a little bit of the tail.
That's so cool. I didn't realize that at first, but once you say it, you kind of can't unsee it.
And the circles, the concentric circles around it, are a bit like a target. So both the wood duck and the beaver were nearly eradicated from Ohio. Actually, the beaver was extinct in the state of Ohio, but their numbers bounced back due to the hard work of lots of very devoted naturalists.
Sure.
So they thought that these were appropriate animals to use on the cover of a book that celebrates Ohio's natural heritage.
That's so great. What an interesting backstory. I think the circles also just kind of look like the rings in the water, too.
Right, as if the duck is swimming, it gives it some movement to it. And
That's
his artwork
amazing.
does have a lot of movement to it. It's not stagnant, it's not stale.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for telling us about him.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's our show. You can see all of today's stories at WOSU.org and, of course, on our handy-dandy mobile app. And be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're leaving you today with a local music video by Damn the Witch Siren. You'll probably be able to tell why we selected it to close out this week's show. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next week on Broad and High.
Production of Broad and High is funded in part by the Greater Columbus Arts Council, supporting arts, advancing culture, and connecting the community to artists, events, and classes at columbusmakesart.com.